What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Honestly, I'm Fine. I am your host, Miley Navarro, and surprise, I'm not fine. Weirdly enough, you can thank Oprah for that, because today I woke up this morning trying to be a normal functioning adult. I was drinking my lukewarm soda that I left on the nightstand, and I do this like a survival strategy. I'm pretending that my life is being held together, but really it's just barely stitched together with a little bit of trauma, a little bit of intuition, and whatever cosmic duct tape keeps getting slapped onto my life every time I try to move forward without crying. I made the mistake of watching Oprah talking to Laura Lynn Jackson about her new book, Guided. And if you don't know who Laura Lynn Jackson is, she wrote the book Signs. For me, watching this interview was basically emotional whiplash because I genuinely love both of these women. But I'm watching Oprah and she's talking to Laura Lynn like she has reinvented the wheel. Now, Oprah is the nation's spiritual mother who could literally whisper, breathe, and people would start to levitate. And Laura Lynn Jackson is this brilliant, warm medium who talks about the afterlife like she's literally been there for brunch daily. I admire both women, I do. But sometimes watching them makes me feel like I'm the broke third cousin in the back of the church muttering, okay, cool. But I've been saying all of this exact same shit for years, and no one gave a shit that I said it. No one clapped for me. But because Oprah nods her head one time, the whole country goes, oh my gosh, yes, intuition is real. Yes, signs are real. Yeah, we can really ask for this stuff. Yes, our loved ones communicate with us. And I'm sitting here going, wild, fascinating, because when I have said the exact same things, people look at me like I am growing an arm out of my forehead and running a cult in my living room. I'm not mad at Laura Lynn Jackson. This is not some spiritual mean girls moment. She didn't sign up to be my competition. Hell, she was here first. She's telling her truth. She has the balls to do these things on a scale that I'm just now stepping into. And hell, let's be honest, you can do a lot when you've got a production team, especially when Oprah wants to sit down and talk to you. What I've got is an iPhone, the Notes app, and a lot of trauma induced insomnia. I'm not exactly delivering the same kind of content right now. But watching them talk lit something up inside of me. Something between jealousy and longing and that deep ache of recognition. Because I feel like I've been living with the same wisdom that they are calmly discussing, except my wisdom did not come from meditation retreats or this serene inner knowing that I was born with. My knowing and my intuition and everything I've come to know over the last 16 months has come to me because I watched my 9-year-old son die a slow death from brain and spinal cancer, from having my reality ripped open in front of everyone I knew, from being shoved into the spiritual world kicking and screaming with mascara running down my face at all the wrong times. When Kingston died, I didn't get silence. I didn't get this void that I thought I was going to get. I thought he would pass away and it would just be that. He would be gone and then I would be crushed and I would suffer in that grief for the rest of my life. I didn't get, he's in a resting place. Let him be in peace. That's not what it is. That phrase actually makes me want to walk straight into traffic briskly. What I got after my son passed away was energy, a door that I didn't know existed blew wide open like a tornado running through my life. And suddenly the entire world breathed differently. There was no peaceful fade out of my son's soul. It wasn't like he had slipped into another dimension and I rearranged my life from the inside out. I didn't even have the vocabulary to explain what I was going through yet. I didn't have the books. I hadn't heard of signs. I actually thought the people who had gone through this before me were fucking crazy. I didn't have Oprah validating me on national television. I had a gut feeling, several gut feelings that I was wrong, that heaven was real, and this flood of knowledge that said, we don't die the way we think we do. My son was not gone. If anything, his soul felt even more present. I can't even begin to explain it, but I'm going to do my best. The science didn't start because I asked for them to come. I actually wasn't expecting anything, therefore I was wanting nothing. Really, if I was being honest, I wanted to be numb. I wanted to disappear. I wanted to evaporate and people leave me the fuck alone. But out of nowhere, within 10 minutes of my son passing away, signs were loud and shameless and utterly impossible for me to ignore. It made me feel less crazy to acknowledge that my son's soul was still here than it did to pretend it wasn't. It was like he was tapping on this glass between two worlds, but I kid you not, there was actual banging on the walls of the room he passed away in. So he wasn't just knocking on metaphorical glass between the two worlds. He was banging on the wall from the other side, saying, "Look, Mom, seriously, I told you this would happen, and here I am, right here with you." One of the signs that really made an imprint on me was this past Mother's Day, May 2025. Mother's Day falls about a week before my birthday. Kingston had been gone 10 months, give or take. And me and my 10-year-old daughter decided to go whale watching. It was a thing that we would do annually on Mother's Day. And if you guys know anything about Kingston, he loved the ocean. Marine life, sharks were his thing, whales, dolphins, the whole bit. His Make-A-Wish trip was actually to go great white shark spotting, and that's what we did. Every time we took this boy to the ocean, we would see magical things. We're talking not one blue whale, two blue whales, the largest mammal in the world. We saw two of them on a boat with him. We went great white shark spotting off the coast of California in San Jose. We didn't find one great white shark, we found 8. That's the magic of going whale watching with Kingston. So on our first Mother's Day trip going whale watching without him, what do my 10-year-old daughter and I see but one lonely, lame old dolphin? Just one. 3 hours on the water, and all we get is one lame dolphin. We complained the entire drive home like, "Really, Kingston? Really, God? That's all you're giving to me for Mother's Day? That is trash." We get home and we walk down to a restaurant down the street from my house. And if you know anything else about Kingston, it's that he loved claw machines. I actually have one in my living room, and it is filled with Pokemon plushies, and we call it King's Claw. So on Mother's Day, we get home from our lame little whale watching trip, still bitching about our lame little dolphin popping up just to say, "Hello, I'm one lame dolphin. Here's your shit Mother's Day." Just rub it in my face. Well, we walk down to this restaurant and we sit inside, and I kid you not, somebody has installed a claw machine, and it's called King's Claw. Would you believe it was full of Pokemon plushies on Mother's Day? This is something that I didn't ask for. I actually was pissed off, like, "Wow, where are my signs, bro? Nothing? You got nothing for me?" And I walk into that restaurant and I'm staring straight at King's Claw, filled with the one thing that we collected like nobody's business right before he passed away. So let's circle back to the dolphin, okay? I'm still pissed off that we're only seeing one dolphin. A week later, I decide to go to this thing called Medium Mondays at Uncorked here in Manhattan Beach, California. There is a really well-known medium. Her name is Jennifer Schaefer, also out of Manhattan Beach. And she hosts wine and spirits. And we get to ask her one question. For my birthday, I wanted to know what signs are coming through from my son that I might be missing. And with full confidence, she looks at me and she says, "All of them." And everyone starts laughing. And I have my bestie there with me and he says, "Told ya, you know." It's something that I do often, that I will get signs from my son and I will be like, "Those aren't good enough. That's not good enough. That doesn't count." And I will cry and I will beg and I will ask for more. And then she says to me, "He's showing me one dolphin." And I'm like, "Nope, no dolphins, doesn't ring a bell." My son liked sea life so much, but apparently I expected the afterlife to send messages like a Broadway production. But then it hit me sitting there at the table, one dolphin. The one dolphin that I had dismissed exactly 1 week before this. And then it hit me. And I remembered the park that we call the Frog Park. It does have a frog statue, but it also has one dolphin statue. I would take my children to that park. We would sit there and we'd watch the sunset, and there was always at least one dolphin. So, I mean, one is a sign. And I remembered the park was the last place that I had taken Kingston a week before he passed away to see the dolphin and the frog statue. Of course, there was only going to be one dolphin. The same number that I saw on Mother's Day, the same exact number of dolphins that I was ignoring. That's when everything aligned and my skin started to buzz in that electric way that grief does when it tries to hand you the truth that your brain's just not ready to accept. And this leads me to the day before Thanksgiving. Here's the thing. I had been wanting to tell my ex-husband these sign stories for months. Not because we're super close, because trust me, there are days where we are anything but because since my son died, I had this intuitive itch that my son had been trying to reach his dad and that the only one picking up the motherfucking phone was me. And you know, holidays turn divorced parents into temporary diplomats sometimes. So he was hanging around a little bit more, not in a weird way, not in a we're getting back together kind of way, just our daughter deserves stability during the holidays after traumatic loss kind of way. So we decided to take this walk down to the beach, and I am relentlessly telling him this dolphin story between the medium and the whale watching trip. And as I'm telling it, I get this premonition, this vision of just dolphins leaping from the ocean. And I can feel it in my gut. I'm like, oh my gosh, something wild is about to happen. And I actually said it out loud. I said, because you are here, because you're listening to this story, I have this funny feeling that before we leave the beach today, that Kingston is going to go so big, something so big, you won't be able to deny that this story is true. Because as I'm telling him the story, you can tell he's like gnawing his tongue off. He does not want to hear the story, but he's being as polite as he possibly can because my daughter believes in it. So we're walking to the beach and we sit down and I set up. I've said it out loud because you're here. We're going to get these massive signs. Not one dolphin, not two dolphins. We're going to get a pod of dolphins. That's what I'm telling him. Because you're finally listening, we're going to get fireworks. We settle into the sand and the air has this weird November heaviness. If you've been to Southern California in winter, it's freezing during the morning, freezing at night, and nice and warm during the day. So we hit that sweet spot of the morning where it goes from cold to just warm enough to be on the beach, literally in a bathing suit. I sit down crisscross applesauce like a deranged monk and I begin meditating, but not in a very peaceful way. Not the Oprah approved way. I look like I'm from the weekend at Bernie's on the beach with my sunglasses on, towel over my face, trying to not get eaten by the sand fleas. The sky kind of dimmed, like someone had lowered the volume on the sun, and the whole thing felt like something was hiding just outside my peripheral vision. I'm sitting there on the beach and I start calling out to my son loudly, not even subtly. I said, okay, kid, your dad is here. He's listening. Do what you do. 2 hours go by, 2 long hours. I can't feel my ass. I'm vibrating with anticipation and delusion, and the ocean is empty. I had been scanning the ocean the entire time, back and forth, looking for anything. Zuma and her dad are over in the corner doing whatever divorced parent bonding dance they do. They actually looked like they were doing some sort of witchy spiritual cheerleading routine, but nothing was happening. We stand up to leave, and that's when Kingston slaps the drum like he's leading the parade himself. We're grabbing our shoes, and those two are walking towards the sidewalk. I'm grabbing my flip flops. I look up, and the water ripped open. A whale actually launches itself like it's clocking in for a psychic shift. And behind the whale, a fucking pod of 6 or 7 dolphins, flipping and slicing through the water like Kingston had hired an oceanic choreographer. I dropped to my knees and started sobbing. The mascara is now in my mouth. I'm eating sand because that was our son. I holler at my kid. I tell my ex to turn around, and his jaw is in the sand, fully unplugged. And that was the moment he had to admit that our son is still reaching out to us. He is not resting peacefully. He is blatantly communicating with the subtlety of a drag queen entering the room. That moment wasn't a coincidence. It wasn't random. It wasn't gentle. It was a cosmic slap in the face from our kid saying, hi, guys, pay attention. And it reminded me that none of this is magic. What it is participation. And it is exactly what Laura Lynn teaches, exactly what I built my grief journal around. You don't whisper vague wishes into the void. You ask for specifics. You build the language. You engage in the spiritual economy. My son told me 3 months before he died, Mommy, I came here to do a job and my job was you. And he meant it. So when I tell you to go out there and to ask for signs the same way that I teach in my grief journal, it's called You're Not Crazy, You're Connected. It's a spiritual workbook for grieving people. I'm not selling false hope. I am telling you what saved me, what trained me, and what rebuilt me. This is Mandarin with heaven. You have to practice it daily. And I do every day on Instagram, every day in my journal. And he responds to me every single time. And after that whale dolphin spiritual flash mob, you'd think that the universe would give me a break like, okay, she gets it. Pack it up. You can go home now. Let the woman breathe and maybe unclench her jaw. Oh, no, 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 no. Because apparently Thanksgiving, there was one more lesson waiting for me at Six Flags, because clearly we all suffer from a shared diagnosis of poor judgment. Before we even leave the house on the morning of Thanksgiving, I get a nudge, and not a cute one. It's the kind that sounds like your grandma and your intuition and your childhood trauma are all sharing one microphone. Pack extra underwear. And like the responsible adult that I can only cosplay as, I pack them for my daughter, not for myself, because apparently I'm the dumbest intuitive on earth. My mother senses screaming, someone will piss their pants today, and I choose to halfway listen. I toss my daughter's underwear in the bag, and then I hear another whisper, grab an extra pair of shoes. I don't question it. I just grab them like a woman who has learned to stop arguing with invisible forces, or I will pay the consequences. We walk into Six Flags, and the entire place smells like churros, asphalt, and poor life choices. And within the first hour, I kid you not, I pissed myself. Full adult accident. Dignity hasn't been a part of my personality since 2018, so honestly, it barely even registered. But once a full grown woman is walking around in wet pee pants, the whole day becomes a no shame zone, and you either lean in or you go home, and I sure as fuck was not going home. Here's what I was not expecting. The day starts unfolding in this weird slow burn kind of way. Rides are breaking down. The lines we're in are stalling. Kids melting down around me like they're auditioning for Child Hell's Kitchen edition. Everything is off, like the park itself is electrified and glitching. And by mid afternoon, we're completely dehydrated, we're overstimulated, and I'm exactly one churro away from meeting God. So naturally, I've decided that this is the best time for us to get in the longest line at the park for X2. Now, X2 is not a ride, it is a threat. It looks like something that the government should actually classify. But we get in this 2 hour long line anyways, because my survival instincts clearly took the same day off as my adult bladder. And by now, it's dark. It's not date night cute dark. I'm talking haunted carnival dark where everything smells like turkey legs and pee pants. The line says 2 fucking hours, and I don't even care. My knees are singing spiritual hymns, my lower back is filing a formal complaint, and my whole body is giving, ma'am, it's a Wendy's, sit the fuck down. So I decide, fine, this is it. This is where I live now. This godforsaken line. Let the teenagers shriek in Fortnite accents. Let the couples dry hump in front of me. I am resting my old bones like the exhausted amusement park elder that I am now. We have already suffered through an hour of waiting in this line because I refuse to buy the fast pass. I refuse to spend that kind of money every single time. I would rather die in that line than pay $90 so a teenager could wave me forward like I am being knighted. But somewhere around the 40 to 60 minute mark, my daughter and my ex-husband start trying to stage this tiny intervention. They're trying to talk me into buying the damn fast pass anyways. While we're waiting, my 10-year-old philosopher daughter, my tiny little mystic with ADHD, looks up and says, "Isn't it weird that your right is always your right and your left is always your left, even if you turn around and literally start spinning in circles?" But my whole brain lights up like it's a Vegas sign because I am incapable of responding like a normal mom. Nope, I launch into a glove metaphor, a grief dissertation, a crash course in quantum entanglement like I'm defending a fucking doctorate. I'm explaining particles that stay connected no matter how far apart they move, how bonded pairs can never break, how an identity outlasts form, and how my son was always my left-hand kid and I was his right-hand mom. Here's the dark, petty truth. Part of me wanted to stay trapped in that slow-moving human cattle chute because for the first time ever since Kingston died, her dad was stuck listening to me. Not shutting down, not telling me to stop it with the signs, and not suggesting that I get an MRI, a priest, or a psychiatrist. He was just trapped listening. So yes, I might have kept the pace slow on purpose. If I had to stand there like a dehydrated flamingo, then he could stand there and hear me talk about cosmic timing and quantum weirdness and all of the ways that our sun kicks down doors from the other side. But eventually, the temperature drops. I get tired of the sound of my own voice, and I still had claw machines to conquer before the park closed, so I cave. He throws $100 at a 3-minute roller coaster that is definitely about to trigger a diagnosis for me. And considering what happened next, let's just call it a $180 charge, because one of us is walking off that ride with a missing shoe. We get ushered to the front, we get knighted, and the first thing I see is a kid probably Kingston's age, 10 or 11, hobbling off the ride like a wounded goat. He's missing his left shoe, his sock slapping on the pavement like it is literally trying to escape his foot as well. And me being the immature asshole that I am, I start clowning him immediately, zero remorse, in full gremlin mode. My daughter and her dad decide to jump in the car behind me, and I'm alone in my row, buckling in. And that emptiness next to me starts to hit harder than I thought it would have, because Kingston would have fucking loved this ride. I only rode this ride once before with my oldest when he had finished the 5th grade, the same age that Kingston and my daughter are right now. But before I can get sentimental, I hear Zuma and her dad are already crying before the ride even started. My daughter is literally screaming, "I love you, mommy. I love you, my mommy." Like the harness is an actual guillotine. Then the ride launches, violently and unhinged, like a blender built by Satan. We are flipping, we are spinning. I still hear my daughter screaming, "I love you," into the void, like she's sending her final message to humanity. And about 20 seconds before the ride even starts to slow, my left shoe decides that it is done with this world. It yeets itself straight into the night, and that bitch is gone forever. The ride slows to a stop, and we're stumbling off the ride, and I'm thinking, holy fuck balls, karma's a bitch. And with such a fast turnaround time, I didn't even want to tell them. I had actually planned to limp away silently, hoping nobody noticed I was missing a shoe. But of course, the dickhead in front of me decides to spin around and announce to the entire crowd, "Your shoe hit me." So now I'm apologizing like it's the theme park confessional booth. And in the middle of that, I hear my daughter behind me screaming because the harness has come down over her face and she's too tiny to lift it. I sprint over there like a deranged superhero in my one sock and one barefoot because I am 90% sure her dad is still emotionally buffering from the ride himself. Once she's free, I remember the flip flops that I had packed in my bag. Thank God for that whisper, and thank God I freaking listened. I am humbled, barefoot, and now on high alert. Then my daughter says to me, because who doesn't, she has to pee. I also needed to check if I pissed myself again, so we start power walking towards the bathroom. As we pass the photo booth, something grabs me by the spiritual collar and says, "Tell dad to buy that picture." We hadn't looked at a single freaking ride photo the entire day. Not one, but I knew that this one was the one I had to have. So I yell, "You've got to buy it," and off we run to the freaking bathroom like I'm late for my bladder exam. When we come out, I'm in my flip flops holding my one surviving shoe like a fallen soldier, and her dad is standing there with the envelope like it contained national security files, literally shaking his head, stunned. And he's very rarely a speechless guy. "I don't even want to show you the picture," he says. I'm like, "What? What is it?" He says, "You're never going to let me hear the end of this." And he was correct. He turns the photo around and I take a good look at it, and everything in me is goosified. Goosebumps from head to toe. I'm not in that picture. I mean, I am, but I'm basically not there. Not my face, not my body, not even my upper half. The camera skipped me like I owed it couple months' rent. The only part of me visible at all in that photo was my leg. One leg stretched between my daughter and her dad, like the universe said, "We only need this part, thanks." And on that leg is the last and final image of my left shoe. Still on, perfectly intact, in the exact millisecond before it launched into the night and assaulted a stranger. And then my eyes hit the empty seat next to me in the picture. The seat I felt the whole damn ride. The seat that I couldn't stop thinking about. The seat that has belonged to my son since we walked into the park. Next to me is a giant white orb, a perfect orb, a crisp, bright, solid light, not a blur, not a smudge, not a reflection, not just the camera. It's a full sphere of light sitting exactly where my son would have been, right next to me, and I saw it instantly. His dad saw it instantly. And even my daughter was cracking up laughing because for once in his entire existence, he could not explain away what we were looking at. He didn't smirk, he didn't roll his eyes, and he didn't call it dust or reflection. He just stood there looking at the picture, shaking his head like someone had unplugged him from the Matrix. And that silence and that acknowledgement really does say everything. That timing was too sharp, too specific, the symbolism was there, the message was too intimate, and the placement too exact. We had just talked about quantum entanglement. Left shoe, left seat, where he would have been caught in the exact millisecond before loss, just like his life. Tell me that this is a coincidence. You can't. It wasn't a coincidence. Those don't exist anymore. This was not random. It wasn't subtle. It was Kingston. It was spirit from the other side, loud, precise, funny, and direct, and honestly kind of obnoxious because they were my favorite shoes. But it was absolutely unmistakable. And my little boy showed up in the only way he knows how. So big that nobody, not me, not his dad, not a single motherfucking human breathing oxygen, could pretend that this did not happen. So, anyways, that's how my dead kid stole the show on Thanksgiving and used a roller coaster photo to spiritually basically bitch slap his parents into paying attention and saying, "Hey, dad. Hey, mom. Hey, little sister. The signs are real and I am with you every day, all the time." Which brings me to why I'm even telling you this unhinged little family tradition story in the first place, because trust me, I know how this sounds. Hi, welcome to my podcast. Let me walk you through the time my son dropped a whale, six dolphins, a disappearing act, a flying shoe, and an orb cameo, all in under 48 hours. I know, it sounds insane. And that's exactly why the Oprah interview had me fired up like I had just mainlined a pumpkin spice exorcism. Because when I tell these stories, even people who swear that they love me look at me like I'm about to start levitating or speaking in tongues, and they hit me with, "Are you feeling okay? Have you considered medication? Maybe you should really start talking to someone." Meanwhile, Oprah gives one little nod at Laura Lynn Jackson, and suddenly the whole world's like, "Wow, amazing, deep, groundbreaking. She's a bestseller. Signs are real. Spirits communicate. We are all connected." Oh, really? Really? But when I say it, I'm building a cult in the kitchen. When Oprah says it, it's enlightenment. Cool, everybody. Cool. Look, I don't need to be rich or spiritually moisturized. I just want to be able to tell my story and also not be evicted. Maybe even afford to eat 3 square meals a day. What I want more than anything is to keep my son's legacy alive without somebody suggesting that I be placed on a 72-hour psych hold. And most importantly, I want whoever is listening to this right now, especially the ones going through their own grief or spiritual awakening or whatever rebirth from the ashes moment you're sitting in, to hear this very, very clearly. Listen close. You are not fucking nuts. You are not fucking crazy. You might need medication, but that's between you and your psychiatrist, and exactly none of my business. But the signs you're seeing, the connection you feel, the weird intuitive nudges you're getting, the dreams where they are standing in your living room and you are sure that you are talking to them in real life again, those coincidences that hit too clean and too hard to be a coincidence, they are real. You are not crazy. With or without Oprah's approval, with or without your friends nodding politely. And honestly, fuck your friends if they step back from you like you're cursing their bloodline. That's not friendship. That's fear wearing Lululemon. It's okay to outgrow people when life cracks you wide open. It's okay that you don't fit into the old version of yourself. And it is more than okay that the world feels different now because your life changed. It's supposed to. One of the hardest things that I had to accept after my son died is that I am not the same and I never fucking will be. And that's not a tragedy to me anymore. That's the truth. And that's the cost of loving someone so deeply that even death can't shut them up. So if your world is weird or lonely now, if you're feeling things you can't explain, if you're seeing signs and getting nudges and starting to feel like the veil is so thin that it may be even thinner than your last pair of Target leggings, good. Welcome. You're not alone. You're not crazy. You're connected. And if Oprah ever wants to have me on the couch to validate that, I am so free right now, available whenever 24/7. But until then, you've all got me and my son and whatever spiritual circus he's running up there with your loved ones. All right, bitches, I'm emotional. You're emotional. The universe is probably somewhere in between laughing. So let's land this plane before I start crying into the microphone like it's a communion cup. If you want to go deeper into this stuff, please download the You're Not Crazy, You're Connected grief journal. That's where I teach you how to actually decode the signs instead of gaslighting yourself into thinking that your loved one would never bother to move a feather or hijack a roller coaster photo just to say hi. Because spoiler alert, they absolutely would. And while you're at it, check out my kids' books on Amazon. You've got Zuma's Magical Balloon, and coming soon, we have The Tree, the Meadow, and the Garden. Please support the legacy, support my daughter, support my stress levels. Let's monetize this mess so that I can keep telling the truth while also paying my bills and making sure that nobody can ignore the fact that connection does not die. None of us do. We just get weirder. Follow me everywhere. TikTok preferably, because that's where the algorithm pretends to love me. Instagram, YouTube. I'll take attention wherever it is as long as it keeps the lights on. All of the links are in the show's description. Just one click, very easy, easier than holding onto your shoe on the X2 apparently. Speaking of which, please remember this as you go back about your life today. Quantum entanglement is real. Love is real. The signs are real. And if you ever lose a shoe on a roller coaster, check the empty seat next to you. You never know who rode with you. Until next time, I'm honestly fine.
This is my story. This is my life.